ChatBack on RCV News.
All right, this morning we do have an interesting conversation. We are looking at, of course, national issues, but we'll focus mostly on the energy crisis that's affected every Zambian. And my guest this morning, I'm privileged to introduce our guest, Nkana Member of Parliament, Honorable Binwell Mpundu. Good morning and welcome to ChatBack, Honorable.
Angel, thank you so much. Good morning to you. It's always a pleasure to be back here. Permit me to greet those that may be joining us this morning. Thank you so much.
Honorable, we haven't had you, I think it's our first time hosting you this year.
Yes.
What have you been up to? You've run away from us.
It's been a crazy period for me. Issues of the constituents, as well as national matters. You realize that the last couple of weeks have been very hectic for me.
Yeah.
Because of the happenings around, a very dear, friend of mine. I think we've made headlines, police knocking on my doors. So it's been quite an interesting episode. I think one that is worth going through so that we learn. Because look, we are on a journey as young politicians, through which journey we are going to be learning quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's expected that on this journey we may make mistakes, and hopefully we can learn from some of those mistakes that we are going to be making. But ultimately, we hope that we are going to emerge, fully baked for the assignment that lies way ahead of us.
Yeah, let's start it off from like you said, your colleague, Petauke Central Member of Parliament, Honorable Emmanuel J. Banda. To us, we don't really understand. All we know is that he's not too well and he's been in hospital. But we understand that maybe with you do get, those close conversations with him and the family. What can you tell us with regards to his health?
So to start with, I think by now that a lot of people knows how close I am with Honorable JJ Banda. JJ is no longer just a friend. JJ is now a relative of mine. He's a brother that I never had. So JJ's family is my family. So you must know that almost on a daily basis, we are sitting to look at what we must do in regards to the health of our brother. So very quickly, I think that the country is aware that sometime about 24 days ago, Honorable J. Banda was abducted. I know that there are certain section of society that wants to trivialize this matter and allege that, the said abduction was fake. But the truth is JJ was abducted. And I think that now it's in public domain that JJ has spoken out on the people that abducted him. The sad part is that from the time this episode happened, JJ has been in hospital. Contrary to the statements that we got from those representing government, particularly the Minister of Home Affairs, who informed the country after having a first look at JJ that he was perfectly fine. We also heard the Minister Tabo Kawana again echoing the same sentiment that JJ was perfectly fine. Interestingly, this is now over 24 days JJ has been in hospital. And had it been that he was being held in a facility that we had insisted he should be held in, that is Medlands, obviously those that have been pushing the narrative that this is a fake abduction would have been justifying their claim, saying, look, is only faking because that is why they chose to be in Medlands. But this is a military government facility, and he has been in that facility for 24 days. That is interesting for a person that is said to be perfectly fine. Okay, so for us as a family, we are very worried about the health of JJ. You wish to know that JJ has an underlying health condition that I think was provoked because of the stress that he went through in the abduction ordeal. Which, condition we don't think that the medical personnel at Mainasoko will be able to handle. We know how we've handled him before, and we've been pleading with government to allow him to go home so that we can get the help that he needs. Now, you know that even if the state has an interest in an individual in the like of JJ, the Convention on Universal Health Coverage is very clear on the rights that patients have. As a patient, you enjoy certain rights, namely, you can choose a health facility of your choice. Okay, but that right has been denied, when it comes to JJ.
Is it safe to say that that right has been denied because of probably what's involved? Allegations of abduction. So maybe we could safely say this is now a state matter because there was an abduction here. So let's keep it in Mainasoko Military Hospital.
Angel, even if the state is involved to get into the details of the abduction, the starting point is that, first of all, the state has not charged JJ for any crime. Okay? So it's illegal for the state to hold on to somebody whom you have not charged with any criminal offense, as things stand today. Secondly, if we are normal human beings who have feelings, okay, who are empathetic, we should have allowed JJ to recover and then bring all those issues, even if JJ had committed grave crimes. Again, the law dictates that he must be, given time to heal. That's when you can proceed with. But in this case, JJ has not been charged with anything. Okay, particularly in relation to the issue of the abduction. How do you now turn the victim into the victor? It's shocking in Zambia today. We saw and we thought that it was a joke when Chilufya Tayari was turned from a victim into a criminal. We see the same pattern repeating itself on JJ. This is a victim who has gone through an abduction ordeal, who should be given all the support for him to recover through that process. But he's actually being held against his will. Don't you think that, again, is, an abduction on its own? Yeah. Because you're basically being detained against your will. Yeah. Remember, the family from the word go had insisted we want to take him into this facility that we are comfortable with. But the state has insisted they want to keep him in a facility. Unfortunately, this facility, JJ is not, getting any better. You wish to know that medical personnel, and I want to thank the medical personnel at Mainasoko, they've been actually very professional in handling this. And they've recommended that this guy has gone through serious stress and he needs time off those, wars to go into a comfortable place so that he can regain.
Have you also been disappointed that in the middle of all this time and again we hear that he's been transported to the police? Why are they transporting him to the police in the middle of all this?
So now, that is where, again,
Because the question that Zambians have to say, if they want to ask him questions, they can also ask him from the hospital bed. You don't have to necessarily transport him to the police.
So,
the police station.
So twice, JJ has been taken out of the hospital to be questioned. At first, he was released by the medical personnel to say, well, he was discharged. And they took him for interrogation at command center, which interrogation lasted from 10 hours up to 17. We are told by the lawyer that in that interrogation from 10 to 17, he was not given water nor food. After the interrogation, I think you've heard the story. When they had finished the interrogation, they decided to take him to force headquarters, according to the police. They decided to take him to force headquarters. The lawyer insisted or asked, have you charged him? No. Is he under arrest? No. Okay, can I then pick him in my car? They refused. They wanted to take him in their car. So they agreed between the lawyers and the police that, okay, he will be accompanied by the wife. The moment they were moving to their vehicle, the police, they put JJ into the car, slammed the door, and sped off. The lawyer had to start chasing after them, went round circles, and lost them in the process. They went to force headquarters only to find he was not there. We started now looking around police cells from one police station to the next, only to be told JJ had been taken to, Kabwata police station. The only thing that saved us is that there again he collapsed and was taken back to Mainasoko unconscious. What sort of actions is this on the part of the police that you decide to speed off? That's, for those who don't understand, that is actually abduction, because this guy is in the presence of the lawyers and the wife and the family. You decide to bundle him in the car, speed off, and purporting to be taking him to police headquarters, only to hear that you've taken him where you did not even announce you're going to take him. The question is, Why all that hullabaloo around the issue of JJ? What are we trying to protect?
Yeah, the other question is, he's told them to say, these are the people that are responsible for my abduction. The question is, why aren't we seeing the police, or why aren't we hearing any statements that so-and-so investigations have commenced on these people that he's mentioned?
So now that I think is a question that you, our colleagues in the media, must be asking, those from the state. In any case, Angel, when there's a crime, even as an example, if there's a burglary in my house and I point a finger on you, you become immediately the prime suspect. The only thing, the normal thing to do by the police is to call you to at least satisfy themselves that you are actually not, the criminal as purported by me who has pointed a finger at you. We've seen the police move, to question certain people, including myself. I think that I was in the story in the news where 16 police officers came to try and ambush me from my house. Later on, they claimed they had given me a call out that I snapped.
That's what
they
we know.
lied.
That's what we know.
Angel, they lied. There's no politician to date who has been summoned by the police whose summons has never been made public. The police, spokesperson lied that they had summoned me and I snapped. When we were having those interrogations, I challenged them. Let me see that call out. First of all, who did you give that call out? Because they were insisting they had given my employer. Now, my employer is obviously National Assembly. Did they give the speaker? Did they give the clerk? Who did they
And
exactly
would you also be
give?
kind to share why you're being interrogated?
Well, I've shared before. So I was being interrogated. Now, I want to be so clear on this matter. So the issue of JJ has got two faces. Okay?
Take us through.
There is one face, the alleged fake abduction. That, narrative has been peddled from the word go by our friends in the UPND, starting from, the Facebook page called Koswe. You know who runs Koswe. Okay? Koswe is run by a gentleman who is very close to the powers that be. He started making this narrative from the word go. Now, humanity dictates that when something a tragedy happens, you must be empathetic, because you don't know at that point whether it is real or fake. But these friends chose it conveniently to start peddling the narrative that it was a fake abduction. Now, there's another side, which is the actual abduction as told by the victim himself. Because in the story of JJ, he has actually told the entire ordeal, including the very people that abducted him. So there are two sides. What we would have wanted to see is the police moving more on the other side, the actual abduction, until they satisfy themselves that this claim is actually not true. Then they can move to the alleged fake abduction. But between you and me, we've seen more actions on the alleged fake abduction, to an extent where, by the way, the reason why I was caught is that when JJ was abducted, was pulled out of the car, these abductors then picked a piece of paper from his car and made him write at the back of that paper. Now, when you flip this paper was a laundry sheet. Yeah. Which laundry sheet happens to be my laundry sheet, because you'll be interested to know JJ's closeness with me is such that sometimes I'll drive his car. So if you come to my house today, you'll find plenty of JJ's document. If you go to JJ's car right now at the police, I can bet my life that you'll find more documents that belongs to me. Okay, so it should not be strange, but I don't blame the police. In any investigation, if you find anything, you must satisfy yourself that this is nothing. So there was for me, I don't see anything sinister in the police calling me to answer why did we find, or
because according to the public,
paper?
they even started to make suggestions that maybe you had something to do with his abduction. Because why was your laundry receipt over? But I think let's close it off.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Let me now say this as we try and close
very
off
quickly.
This matter.
Yeah.
For me, I'm very confident, and this is something that I told the police when they interrogated me. The police should stop fishing in wrong ponds. Right as we speak today, that? Yes, they are doing that. First of all, this city is under surveillance. government installed what we call the safe city cameras, which cameras are able to pick minute details of some activity away in Chilanga. Are you telling me that only on that day of JJ's abduction, those cameras went off? Because in that area where this incident happened, that is a very highly surveyed area. Now, even if our safe city cameras were off that day conveniently, that area is very close to the American embassy. And your guess is as good as mine. The American embassy is a very highly surveyed area. And I can bet my life that there's nothing the sort of what happened to JJ that would miss the eyes of the Americans. If the police were serious, and which I bet they've done now, is to collaborate with our friends from the American embassy, and all those details I want to attest, they must be in their custody. So, truth be told, the police as we speak now, the state as we speak now, they have all the details of the abduction of JJ as we speak now. It would be interesting to see how they could try and divert people's attention. If they do that, they would have to do that at great cost and serious inconvenience to innocent people. The truth is that the police, the state, unless this state has become a cabbage, that everything else has started malfunctioning starting from the day when JJ disappeared. How
soon do you want that they conclude these investigations?
These investigations must be concluded today, and I want to believe that the state today, I'm very confident.
You're confident that they're done.
I am very confident.
They know who's behind.
I'm very confident that today the state knows who did this. After all, it only had to take JJ's word for them to put the dots together. JJ has already spoken. The reluctancy to summon the individuals who have been named can only be concluded that the state is fully aware and they would want to protect those named individuals. Otherwise, if it had not been the case, those guys would have been paraded before the police officers to answer to the allegation. So I want to tell the Zambians, the state is fully aware, and we want to believe so right now. They are fully aware of what happened to JJ. And all they can do, if they're not interested in telling the public, they must just come out in the open that it's not making sense, we are closing, if they are interested in protecting the named individuals.
All right. All we can say is that we wish our Honorable a quick recovery.
Please, we must, and I want to make a
family
plea.
Man and also a member of Parliament for a constituency.
I want to make a plea. We must, as a nation, pray for JJ. And this afternoon, I'll be making the same plea in Parliament. I have found it very odd that Parliament today is sitting, this is the second week, and not a single statement, ministerial statement from the Minister of Home Affairs. What sort of a nation, Angel, are we?
Probably you should raise that as is it matter of
urgent public importance.
Yes.
Angel, what sort of a nation are we? We've seen before Angela Chisupa is abducted. The next day, the Minister of Home Affairs is making a ministerial statement. Today, we are talking about a high-profile individual, a member of Parliament.
Maybe they've done that through
1 week. No. The dictate is that Parliament, the nation must be involved through a ministerial statement through Parliament. Don't you find it very odd and awkward that Parliament decides to be mute over a very important national matter like this one? Don't you find it odd?
Yeah. Let's move on, Honorable. Let's get to let's touch off a little bit with the constituency first, Nkana constituency, and we know that the people of Nkana were very excited when it was announced that Vedanta had to return to KCM, though mixed feelings. And I remember actually calling you, and you told me that you couldn't give me a position. You told me that you have to first digest, but you actually said that it was a relief that this whole issue was sorted out. I would say 1 year down the line, there's still questions on what is really happening with KCM. We know that this particular situation is so important to you. You have debated this issue several times in Parliament. What latest are you? Can you update the nation? We know that probably maybe you are preview to some of these conversations between KCM, Vedanta, and when Vedanta is going to actually return on site and start the production?
The sad part, Angel, is that our friends in the ruling party, the government of the day today, have been very cagey about all these negotiations, very important issues. In a normal government, in a normal functioning society, a member of parliament for Nkana, a member of parliament for Usakile, Chingola, and most parts of Chingola should have been at the table when it comes to these negotiations, because we're very important stakeholders who represents, masses in these respective areas where KCM operates from. I have expressed a lot of misgivings, not just about KCM. I've expressed a lot of misgivings around, Mopani as well. Because contrary to the celebrations that we've seen, and that is why, I always laugh out at our friends, the so-called press singers, that is followers of the UPND. I think that they are so gullible. They want to celebrate anything, even what doesn't make sense. For me, I have to celebrate when I'm given details. Now, before, I have also intimated that I've been very skeptical about commenting on KCM because I've got very good friends, around Vedanta. Because of the closeness, our relationship, I try to keep a low profile on commenting on this matter. But you see, duty also compels me to
for the sake
speak.
of the people.
Remember that Nkana houses part of the assets of KCM. Predominantly, Nkana houses the major stake of Mopani as well. So when I speak, I don't speak, for my personal benefit. I speak for the benefit of the people of Nkana, because you wish to know, Nkana is a cosmopolitan constituency. Our lives are dependent on mining, exclusively. There's very few or very little activities around, agriculture and otherwise. Everything else for us revolves around, the mining sector. And so we are very worried, like you have said, 1 year down the line when, the announcement was made to the effect that KCM, the issue had been resolved. There's nothing that has happened today. As we speak today, almost every day, workers are being laid off in all those companies that have been subcontracted to supply services, to KCM. Whereas on one hand, we were being told now life is returning to Chingola and Kitwe. The opposite is happening. People are losing jobs every day. So the fate of KCM is unpredictable, unknown as it is.
So as far as we're concerned, Vedanta is not on the ground yet.
Well, they are only existing on paper in as far as we are concerned, because if they were on the ground, the effect would have been would have seen people, getting employed, would not have been seeing people otherwise being retrenched or being laid off, because that's what is happening now. Today, not long ago, there were circulars from, KCM, where they were actually informing employees of KCM that their salaries would be delayed. Now, it is very strange today that KCM management will be informing the workers that we don't even know when you're going to be paid. Interestingly, there was another circular by KCM also to suppliers telling them to hold on to all the orders they had been given until at such a time when they would have been told to supply. Now, what that means is that you are further, pushing people into poverty and risking people's property. Because you see, when you are given an order, from the mines, Mopani, KCM, it's as good as having an open check. So you can rush to the bank, get, a small loan to service your order. Now, when you get that loan, you go and secure the goods, only to now be told that you should hold on to those, stuff until we tell you. So do you know what that means? People have lost properties, by bank repossessions. Okay. Interestingly, even, I've said this before. The sad scenario also happened at Mopani, where there was a celebration that, suppliers and contractors were being paid. They were being paid today after a long spell, a dry spell of not being paid, only the next day to see ZRA garnishing their accounts. It's recklessness of the highest order for a government to allow people that have endured long years or many years of not being paid today they are being paid because of the coming in of a partner, and government allows them to be garnished.
Yeah.
Why not give them a flexible
getting back
payment
to
term?
KCM, it all goes back to the question: is Vedanta the right investor for KCM? I know you've talked about how that you've got friends and you're a little bit reluctant to have conversations around KCM, but I think for the sake of the people that put you in office, the people that look up to you and say, I think when we look at the honorable, we have some hope, because according to the information that we have, many economists have commented on this issue, talking about how that Vedanta doesn't have the money, and we've heard some reports, some writings that Vedanta now has even advertised for other companies to buy shares into KCM for the shares that they do have. So there's been now questions of, let's get back. Is Vedanta the right investor for KCM? Because 1 year down the line, it only seems on paper.
Your guess is as good as mine, and the speculations by the people are genuine. It is not very difficult to ascertain the viability of any entity, particularly listed companies, because we want to believe that Vedanta is listed on many stock exchange markets. And I think that to assess their viability and their capacity to be able to finance, the revamping of Vedanta should not be something that we must go and fetch, from the moon. I think we should be able to get those details. So the people that are commenting are rightfully placed to question, the viability of, Vedanta in addressing the issue of KCM. I think that for me, what is important is that as opposed to us making our own assertions and conclusions, I think we should give Vedanta enough rope to hang themselves, to come out in the open and be able to state their capabilities. Okay.
The question is, how long are we going to wait?
I think that's
the
is
question
where that is
the people of Nkana have.
For me, I think what we may need now is us who are in Parliament to press on the minister to inform the nation on what exactly is going on. And secondly, I want to implore on you colleagues in the media to keep asking the necessary questions, because look, the lives of the people are at stake today because of this seemingly now a very bad decision that should have been made. I remember myself writing a very long-winded statement, or rather message to the president before the announcement, saying, Your Excellency, you may need to really, really thoroughly look at this matter before you close it off. I was being driven by, the fears as expressed by many players that there seems to be a problem in as far as Vedanta is able to access, finances for the revamping of KCM. So we are looking at a very gloomy, situation. I shudder to think what the lives of the people of Nkana are going to be if this matter protracts, from today on. Already they were almost celebrating, Mopani. But the opposite is happening.
Celebrations have died down. But are you still confident that Vedanta is going to make things happen at KCM? Are you confident?
As I still stand, I'm very skeptical, if you ask me. I'm very skeptical knowing that 1 year down the line, there is no ray of hope as things turning, round.
Maybe it's a paperwork. How long does this paperwork
I don't think
last?
that paperwork would take over a year. Remember, I thought that the announcement by government was that we've now taken this matter out of the court because you can't mine through the courts. So if the matter was taken out of court, should it really take 1 year for a committed people? Because now this is 3 years of the UPND trying to resolve the issue of KCM. 3 years. Remember, their commitment was that we are going to resolve the KCM, without much ado. Okay? We are talking 3 years down the line, and there's no iota of hope for the people of Chingola and for the people of Mpundu, as well as the people of Quito.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. But just before we do that, just a reminder that this conversation is live on Facebook. We are live on RCV News. RCV News is a platform where we post everything current affairs. So come try and let's get interactive. This morning, we are looking at national issues. To be precise, we are going to get into the energy crisis that the country is facing. And my guest this morning is Nkana Member of Parliament, Honorable Binwell Mpundu. He's with us in studio to help us look at this topic. And a reminder that for your text messages, you can send them on the number 0956 200490. Before we hit the top of the hour, Honorable, let's get into the energy crisis that the country is currently facing. We've seen that this energy crisis has really affected not only households, but businesses and the operations of many, especially in the private sector. But maybe just to start it all off, from what we were taught and from what we have seen, we experienced a drought, and Zambia being a country that really depends on hydro, we've heard of how that the water levels have gone down, and it has affected power generation at Kariba, Itejiteji, Kafue Gorge, and Kafue Lower. And in the middle of all this, we heard the Minister of Energy previously on the floor of the House talking about how Zambia needs to continue exporting electricity because of the contracts that they have, and also for business sake. But recently, we were told that out of the 195 megawatts that the country exports, about 100 megawatts is going to be recorded for local consumption. Maybe let's start it from there, because according to some Zambians, they feel that the government is not being honest on this situation. One day they're told, no, we cannot do away with exports. The other day they recall. So the Zambians feel there's no honesty in this particular issue. Let's start it off from there before I get to your opinion on what you think of this load shedding generally.
So, Angel, let me start off by stating that I am an accountant stroke lawyer myself. I'm not an energy expert. Much of what I will say on this program is basically from experience and, what I've learned along my line of service. And so, my statement or whatever I'm going to say is subject to rebuttals from energy experts. Now, for me, I want to be as very clear as possible as I discuss this matter. You wish to know that the energy sector is what drives, what fuels the engine of development. Just as we say that water is life, energy is actually life. Because you wish to know there are certain people who are in hospital today who are being supported by machines, which machines are being, supported or driven by electricity. Okay? So power is life itself. In other areas, say in Europe, without gas, they would freeze to death. Okay? So we have every reason to state that just like water, power is life. So not only does energy drive the engine of the economy, energy is life itself. Now, the energy crisis can best be understood from two facets. Okay? So within the energy sector, we have the fuel subsector, and we have the electricity subsector. Let me briefly touch on the fuel, because these are interconnected or interlinked.
Yeah.
In the wisdom of the late President Kenneth Kaunda, because Zambia being landlocked, it means that for us to be able to move the fuel, 100% of which we don't have in our land, we have to collaborate with our neighbors for us to be able to move that fuel, either by road or other means. So Kenneth Kaunda and his government decided to set up two strategic, companies, Indeni and Tazama. Okay? Now, Tazama runs a pipeline from Dar es Salaam, which pipeline was designed to transport crude oil, or they call it the commingled fuel, from a ship that would dock in Dar es Salaam. Instead of moving through the trucks, the crude would be transported through that pipeline into Indeni, which company then would then separate this commingled fuel. When the separation is done, it will give us a lot of byproducts: diesel, petrol, kerosene or paraffin as you call it. Amongst the other products that it will give us, it also used to give us HFO. Now, HFO is heavy fuels. Okay? Now, at most, when a ship would dock in Dar es Salaam, and the fuel is moved into Indeni and there's a separation. There were storage facilities at Indeni which are existing now. And at most, we will have 3 months of our fuel needs in the entire country. We are talking about diesel, petrol, and the other needs, including jet fuel. Okay? So, the decision of Dr. Kenneth Kaunda was such that at any given time, can you imagine today there is war in Tanzania? If you've moved your commingled fuel into Indeni through the pipeline and the separation has been done, you have a month covered of your fuel needs. Okay, you can actually survive and look for other options within a month. Okay, that is why these strategic companies were created. Number one, to be assured of constant supply of this product, at least for a month.
Even with the current population?
I may need to understand whether the current population
because there's been those conversations of
okay. But I'll tell you what else now
has increased.
I'll tell you what else has been done over the years. The other issue would be that this decision or the movement of crude into Indeni covers you also from the price fluctuations. If today the price on the international market of fuel changes, you will not be affected at least for the next 1 month. If you go back to history, the previous government, starting from Kaunda, never used to do monthly price reviews. They would do reviews maybe quarterly, sometimes even after a year. The reason was that because government was a player through these two establishments. Government actually used to buy the fuel. There's no government in the world, and I want to be challenged, that would make a decision to completely stay away from the business of energy. It is a big mistake to wash your hands off the energy sector, because the energy sector is the actual engine of the economy. The policy decision of the UPND now is to wash their hands off, particularly the fuel subsector, and leave it completely to the private sector. You cannot do that. It's a foolish decision, if you like, because you are now subjecting your citizens into the hands of the private sector. There is no private company today that is interested in developing your country. Takwaba. There is no company that will come, whether it is run by Elon Musk, the richest dude, or anybody else, that will come into Zambia to say to develop the country. They are out to make business. So when you make a decision to surrender this very important ingredient of your lives into the hands of the private sector, you are doomed.
Honorable, it's almost 10. We have to break off for the news. Let's continue the conversation just after the news. And we are getting your contributions on the number 0956 200 490. Just after the news, we'll get back with the conversation. Good morning.
ChatBack on RCV News.
My name is Angel Kasavo, and thank you so much for joining. This morning, we are looking at the energy crisis and other national issues. And my guest this morning is Nkana Member of Parliament, Honorable Binwell Mpundu. He's with us in studio to help us look at these issues that are affecting you, the Zambian. And also a reminder that this conversation is live on RCV News on Facebook. You go to Facebook and search for RCV News. Come through for your contribution and question. Then also the number is 0956 200 490. Honorable, because of time, let's straight get back into it.
Okay.
We're just looking at the energy crisis, and you took us back to the fuel, because this is also another issue that's really negatively affecting the Zambian. And you was just, breaking it down for us, Tazama, Indeni, and how that you are disappointed that government has decided to completely stay away from the procurement of fuel. Maybe let's start it off from there.
Okay, just a recap. In understanding the energy crisis, I started off to understand the two facets of the energy sector, which is the fuel subsector and the electricity subsector, because these are pretty much interlinked. So I explained the decision that was made by the previous government, particularly the UNIP government, to try and establish two strategic industries, Ndeni and Tazama. The idea was particularly to cushion ourselves, number one, from price fluctuations. Because the current situation today is such that if there's any price change on the international market, tomorrow we must feel it. If there is any fluctuation of our currency against major convertibles, tomorrow we must feel it. Now, if the worst was to happen today, that there was war or an earthquake in Tanzania or between Tanzania and Zambia where the pipeline runs, you can imagine the trouble that this country may get into, which is why at any given time before, we would have 3 months cover in terms of the reserves. The other government that came in, the PF government, decided to increase the capacity of storage. From the 3 months that was at Ndeni, the PF decided to increase, or to build storage facilities across the provinces. There's one in Lusaka which stores about 25 million liters, of both petrol and diesel. And the idea was to build these facilities across the provinces. I think there's one that was already built in Northwestern, in Mansa, in Mpika, and many, I think in Mongu. The idea was to roll them out in all the provinces. At the end of all these projects, this country would be able to hold stock of fuel and diesel, I think, close to a year. Now, the beauty of you holding stock close to a year is such that even if there was a calamity, there was a disaster, there was war, you are cushioned because you have sufficient stocks. Now, remember, government would procure that. Depending on the capacity of financial resources, you could as well decide to buy in excess for you to be able to stock up to a year. That cushions you, particularly from price fluctuation. Now, I go back to the commingled fuel. So when the commingled fuel is transported from Dar es Salaam into Ndeni, and Ndeni separates these into diesel, petrol, the other byproduct was HFO, the heavy fuel. Yeah. The heavy fuel would then be sold to a company called Ndola Energy. This heavy fuel would be used by Ndola Energy to produce electricity. Ndola Energy, before the decision of the New Dawn government, would produce up to a maximum of 105 megawatts. Now, 105 megawatts is huge. It can actually power Luapula, Northern Province, perhaps even Eastern Province. Now, the decision to cut off Ndeni and to convert the pipeline to now be transporting on one finished product called diesel means that you will no longer be having the heavy fuels, and Ndola Energy is then completely, thrown off. I've heard some comments that Ndola Energy will now be able to produce, I don't know what, whether they will give them diesel or what. Yeah. I don't know what, but ideally, Ndola Energy was surviving on the HFO. So you can see the connection. From Ndeni. So you can see the connection between the two facets of the energy sector. Yeah. The fuel through Tazama gives you HFO that will then be given to Ndola Energy. Ndola Energy will then produce 105 megawatts of electricity.
Before we get into the electricity now, since you've talked about fuel, we also want to get your recommendations. Well, in this particular situation where the private sector is the one responsible for the procurement of fuel, and we've seen that it's monthly. These price reviews are monthly, and there's been all these issues. What would be then your recommendations with regards to, this particular whole fuel arrangement? Because to the business people, they say that this monthly is not doing us good because we cannot plan, and then also the transportation of fuel from Dar es Salaam to the different parts of the country by road increases the price of fuel at the pump.
So you can see, Angel, that for me, I call it a very selfish and reckless decision by the UPND government to change the policy on the fuel. Okay? First of all, you jeopardize Ndeni and Tazama. Secondly, you now throw the Zambian people into the hands of people who are not interested in helping. They are interested in making profits. Thirdly, and this I want you to put it on record, government decides to transform the pipeline called Indeni Pipeline and awards the contract to a company called Agrofuel. Umulandu taubola by Angel. Agrofuel, some years to come, is going to pay very heavily. The country has not been told of the commingled fuel that was in the pipeline, which is estimated to be worth millions of dollars, that they have not disclosed to the country what they did with that fuel, because that is government fuel worth millions of dollars. In the cleanup process, that fuel should have been given to government. We've not been told as to what. We can conclude Vadiva. And I want to just put that as an assumption, because there's not been any statement. Today, they may enjoy protection from the friends in government. There will be a day when they will have to answer for that. Secondly, the decision of the so-called government, UPND, was to now convert this pipeline so that it is now open access. Everybody can use it. You've heard the outcry from the other stakeholders who are saying, we all would like to be using this pipeline because then it reduces on transportation cost. Yesterday, we hosted the Minister of Energy, who then intimated to us at the at Parliament in our committee that they've nominated a few other companies to also use the pipeline before the one who will be given the contract to use that contract starts using it. So in the meantime, there's a window for some players to use.
Yep.
Look, that's between him and us. I don't know how that is working, but you can see that the sector has cried foul, that there's undue competition because Agrofuel is being given exclusive rights to be using this pipeline, and the others are now have to compete with Agrofuel that is using this medium, which is supposed to be free for everybody, but the others are transporting through the road, which is expensive. So their fuel is expected to be expensive than Agrofuel. So these are things that...
So Agrofuel makes more money.
Obviously, they have to make more money.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we are all in the hands of the private sector completely.
Yeah, but don't you think there's been conversations about the private sector, of how that the private sector is very efficient? The private sector is, always on time. And also, if you are going to have a thriving economy, the private sector should be doing well.
The private sector must simply complement government. We must be partners. There must be that collaboration. This sector called the energy sector is a very important sector, like I did intimate from the preambles. You cannot let it into the hands of the private sector completely. Remember, even as we flip it to the other facet, which is the electricity subsector, there's been a serious conversation for many years over the intentions to send ZESCO into private hands. Do you know why that has not taken off? You cannot give, because this is energy security we are talking about. You cannot give ZESCO into the hands of the private sector. Like I said, there's no company that will be here to joke with you or to do chimbuya with you. Every company that will come will be strictly to make profits. If you were to give ZESCO, today, right now, as we speak, other than the load shedding issue, the tariffs have been biting. People can hardly survive or can hardly afford to buy units. Okay? If people buy units, those who can afford, they can only do for lighting bulbs. Many people are simply using charcoal and otherwise. So we are talking about a decision to completely detach government away from the energy sector. It's a very reckless decision.
So government shouldn't have done that.
It must have a stake. Government must have a stake in both the fuel subsector and the electricity subsector. In fact, it must be the major player, because when you detach yourself, remember those things will come in. Number one, you as government will struggle to be able to determine prices. Number two, the availability of the commodities will be highly, compromised, because it's in the hands of the private sector. The private sector can claim we don't have money now, okay, and you'll be sent in limbo. So which is why the government must have a serious role, a hand in these two sectors of the energy sector.
Sure. All right, let's get to the electricity, because I'm saying that we are running out of time and there's so many issues that we have to address. Let's talk about the electricity crisis. I know people of Nkana, your phones are always ringing and saying, Honorable Kunotatukweta Malite, there's been these issues of load shedding, but there's also been this issue of we're going to record the 100 megawatts that we're exporting to the other neighboring countries. Does that give us some sort of hope that maybe the load shedding hours are going to be reduced?
First of all, if we are to understand the energy, particularly the electricity subsector, you must understand that at some point, first of all, you must understand that if we are to look at percentages, the Zambian people are not connected to electricity. You must know. There are very few people. In terms of percentage, we are less than half the population of
Especially
Zambia.
in rural areas.
Especially in rural areas that are connected. And so we are basically talking about the capacity to be able to supply power, electricity, to the very few people that are already connected. Okay? When we talk about the capacity of this country has got the capacity to be able to produce electricity to feed the entire region. Why? Number one, because we enjoy quite a lot of favorable advantages. For instance, we can produce hydropower in Zambia, serious hydropower quantities. We can, produce, power, solar power, because of, the vast land we have and good, weather patterns. We can produce, power from wind turbines. So we stand at a very, strategic position as a country to be able to supply power, not only to the Zambians, but also to the outsiders. Now, you do recall that not long ago, the president was on record saying, we have worked so hard. President HH, we have ended load shedding. Okay? Now, he basically just forgot to compliment the efforts of those that were before him, because all these projects that he could have had a hand in were started many years ago. Because between you and me, hydro power projects, take quite long. We know of a power project in Kariba North, which is about 750 megawatts, which was not completed by PF. They left it in the process, and UPND took over and completed the other remaining turbines. I think that is the reason why.
That's Kafue
Lower, rather.
Yeah.
That is why President HH was saying, you've seen, we've now addressed the issue of load shedding. There's no load shedding. It's because they managed to be able to complete that project with the friends had started initially. Now, the reason why we are having load shedding today, there are a number of reasons why we are having serious load shedding. Today, I cannot imagine how people are surviving. I can give an example in my area where I'm living. I go home, I'm only told power, went around 9. Power was only coming or being restored around 01. By the time I was waking up at 6, there was no power. The question is, are you giving, the witches to come and use it to bewitch us? Because if you're going to supply power between 1 and 4, who are you giving that power to? Because you see, the challenge with what that we have is that, yes, we want to agree, and I want to put this in very clear context. Yes, we can understand that there are certain happenings which are acts of God, which human beings have no control over. But what God has also done in his wisdom is to give you, wisdom or knowledge to be able to manage your affairs given the circumstances you are living in. Because it would interest you. There are certain countries in Libya that are purely in desert that have got power throughout the year. Dubai, for instance, they've got power throughout the year. Look at the conditions in those countries. So they've had to survive despite the environmental conditions. They've had to adapt to other means. So what Zambia's situation dictates now, because of the the changes now in the environment and all this, the climate effects, we now need to adapt. Okay, we must now go on to pursuing other sources like solar and all those. But on top of all this, it is important to now ask the people who are in charge, what decisions are they making? How committed are they in addressing this problem? For instance, ZESCO today can hardly come up with a program to load shed, even just a timetable ya load shedding, lelo, Angel. Because normal people could say, okay, peak hours. If we load shed you from 6 to 15 hours, at least we are going to give you power from 16, 17 up to 24 hours. So that if you did not use power in the peak hours of the afternoon, at least use power in the peak hours of the evening. Because if you are going to give power to people around midnight, people are sleeping. Today, abantu balenda nefya kufuala, ifya kuchiswa, Angel. People today, the way we survive. Mwashito nga mwafola, you would buy your needs. All those things are going to waste. You can imagine the anguish people are living in. So it's about the decisions. Just managing the schedule has become a problem for ZESCO. Just managing a schedule where you can say, Imo to Kalamishta load shed from this to that area, and you stick to that time frame. People can plan. You see, all this, be it the fuel subsector or the electricity subsector, the underlying principle is that it must be predictable. You must be able to give chance for people to plan. So the problems that have brought us where we are now, some of which we cannot, obviously, are beyond us, which is the climate issues.
Yeah.
The climate issue has made the southern part of Zambia not to be receiving good rainfall over the years. And you know that our hydropower, from which we draw most of our power, is concentrated on the south. And this problem has not started today.
Legacy issues.
It's a legacy issue. For many years now, the southern part has been receiving very erratic, rains. The other part of the country, which is the northern part, are abundantly supplied with rains. Okay? Because of the proximity with the rainforest of Congo and all this. So Luapula, Northern Province, Northwestern Province are good. Even when it comes to farming, those areas can be utilized. Okay? Now, what should government have done? Hydropower is a very clean source of energy. Okay? We cannot completely do away with it. Okay? And a very stable source of power. The only thing that we may need to do now is to tap into the waters of the northern part of Zambia and invest heavily in hydropower in the northern part. There's been a lot of discussions about, harnessing the water resources of Luapula River, including all the waterfalls along that, river basin.
Yeah.
We're talking about in Tumbachushi Falls in Kawambwa, Lumangwe in somewhere in Polokoso,
Yeah.
and quite a number of those falls. We're talking about Mambilima there, the need for us to upgrade, those facilities. I think that this is where government must be concentrating its effort. It is not, it should not be an scapegoat to continue crying foul about the weather patterns, climate change, even when you have plenty of option, particularly the plenty of water resources in the northern part.
Let me just
all that we need to do is to shift
let me just throw in a question there coming from the layman. And these are conversations that even when I meet people on the ground, they tend to ask me, they say, look, we're having the load shedding right now, right? We do have high fuel prices, but we celebrated how that we're able to do the debt restructuring. We celebrated how that we're able to clinch this IMF, program and other gains that the UPND have made. How come the cost of living remains high? How come there are issues of high prices of commodities? Honorable, if you were to go into a shop right now, just across Kalingalinga, you buy milk today, you go back on Friday, you might probably find that the price is different. So there are all those complaints that people are, trying to figure out. And it's in people like you, the honorables, where they look to answers to say, Honorable, what's happening? You are in Parliament. You understand these things. How come out of all these gains that we've made as a country, the Minister of Finance says, yes, we as a nation, we're passing through some challenges, but the economy is growing. The economy is on the right track. But how come on the ground the situation is different?
So let me address the issue of the economy versus the debt restructuring and the cost of living just a little later. Let me just exhaust this, thought about the energy.
Because of time. Okay.
So the problem in the energy sector is, number one, leadership. Okay. First of all, you killed off one entity that used to give you 100 megawatts, which is Nola Energy, because of the reckless decision to kill off Indeni and transform the pipeline. You understand?
Yeah.
So you reduce 100 megawatts of power from the grid, trouble kicks in. In the midst of the trouble, you still want to be exporting 200 megawatts of power. That's 300 megawatts of power reduced from the grid. Today we are talking about a deficit of 800 megawatts. A national deficit. Can you imagine if you had not taken off Ndola Energy, it will reduce to 700. Can you imagine if you were not exporting the 200, that will reduce it to further, how much? 500. So you would have been sitting at a deficit of 500 megawatts. Now, 500 megawatts as a deficit will obviously reduce the load shedding hours from 8 to somewhere between 5 and 6. So that's a number one decision to be made. Of course, I've heard the government has recorded a part of the 195.
100.
They've recorded 100 megawatts. That's a good decision, because even if they are bilateral, agreements, there's a time when you have to go back to your partners, bilateral partners, and say, guys, we have a crisis back home. Can we suspend this agreement? We'll be able to fulfill our obligation in time further. So I want to salute the government that it has recorded the 100. I think that they could have done better.
Yeah, they're saying that the 95 is actually up for negotiations.
Yes.
Because they want to bring it all together.
I think that the best thing to do is the entire 195 to be recorded, because that reduces your deficit to 600 from 800. If Ndola Energy comes on board, now, I know that the decision has been made. I don't know whether they're going to get the materials to now supply Ndola Energy to be producing 100 as announced by government. That further reduces the deficit to, 500.
They've also talked about Mamba, that they're going to look for financing through the private sector.
Okay. So Mamba is a bit tricky option.
Yeah, 300 megawatts.
Even as government is considering Mamba, it's a very tricky option, because today, because of climate issues, Zambia is now signing a number of agreements that are aimed at, reducing activities that pushes the issue of climate change. And you know that coal-fired plants are one of the biggest, contributors to carbon emissions. So if you go the route of Mamba, you would otherwise risk having trouble with your other, cooperating partners, particularly the international community, who are saying, let's run away from coal-powered plants. I think that the
Climate
best we can
change.
do,
Yep.
yes, climate change is now very real. So you cannot be going to Mamba and use, embarking on, coal-powered plants. Yes, there's a crisis, but remember, you now are going to face trouble from your other colleagues with whom you have signed a number of treaties, and agreements. I think that the best approach would be, let us do more of solar. I'm aware that government has announced that there's 100 megawatts of solar that is going to be developed very soon. Project has started. That further reduces the power deficit. I think we can do much more.
Honorable,
At this
quickly,
point.
I would like to get your thoughts on the economy, because we have to bring in callers. Callers have been calling,
So,
yes.
The number one measurement of how an economy is performing, according to me as a layperson, because I'm not an economist again, is two things, I think. Is how your currency is performing against the major convertibles, and Kwacha has been performing badly. And the sad part with the Kwacha performance is that government has failed to stabilize this currency at a given rate. Now, you ask, economic players, they will tell you what is very important is stabilization of your currency, because your currency can be trading even at 50 kwacha against $1. But for as long as it's stable at 50, it enables sector players or the players to be planning way in advance. The same applies with fluctuation of prices for fuel. It doesn't help the businesses to plan. So the currency must be stable. Unfortunately, despite the currency being very high, it's still even not stable. Government must do everything to stabilize the currency. So currency performance is the number one measurement of how the economy is doing. So from that score, our currency is doing very badly.
It hasn't been stable.
It hasn't been stable. You can see today, Pamulu to Mailo, Yambo Kunina, so you can't even celebrate. Secondly, the true measurement is the standard of living, the cost of commodities. In any economy, if you go to an economy, you are able to see just how much people are struggling to go by. You will know that this economy is not favorable for anybody. It's performing terribly. So I wonder how, where our friends in the UPND gets even the courage to come and announce that we are doing fine, our economy is picking up, when the opposite is happening. Because look, even because they say numbers don't lie, okay? If today I'm going to walk into a shop and be able to buy midi meal at 350, when just not long ago I was buying at 150, numbers don't lie. It tells you how bad things have become. If I'm going to buy, a liter of fuel at 30, when not long ago I was able to buy fuel at 17, it tells you just how bad things are. So our friends have again failed in managing the economy, because the true measure would have been the translation of whatever pronouncement they've been making into reality. Because umuntu, Angel, in Salabalanda ifokopa built at Kapondo. No matter what you do, you can do your roads, for as long as people are not able to afford the basic commodities, you are a poor government. And right now, this government called the UPND is the worst of governments, going by the measurement of the people, because Abantu, they are interested in being able to buy mid-meal at an affordable price, and also the commodity being available. Because two things are happening now for mid-meal. No longer is the price the issue, also the availability, because of poor planning. Okay. So our friends have not done very well. Let me now also talk about the celebrated debt restructuring.
Do you buy the justifications to say we inherited a damaged economy and we need time to fix it? In this time to fix it, we'll pass through some challenges such as this. But do you think that's justified?
But UPND only has 5 years. How much time do they need? They only have 5 years. When you are elected, me as Member of Parliament, I only have 5 years for the people of Nkana. In that 5 years, I must be able to say, look at what I have been able to do. Please give me an extra one term so that I can be able to finish off. Right now, tell me what UPND is able to tell the people to say as a reason why they must be given another mandate. Because everything is in haywire.
They talk about CDF, free education.
Do you understand what free education means?
Scholars.
Okay. So free education literally means, in its truest sense, you are able to walk into a classroom without having to pay anything, books supplied, uniforms supplied, and you are able to have quality education. Yes, there's free education today because children can go into a classroom, but have you taken a minute to understand the cost of that same free education? Because children now have got to buy books at what cost? Children have got to buy uniforms and bags at what cost? Okay? Can you now also talk about the compromise in the quality of education because of the overcrowding? I have in my constituents, schools like Makonde, where there are 180 children in one classroom sitting on the floor. Because even if you add the desks, how can you have desks that would accommodate 180 children in one classroom? So
to that defense, the UPND said that's a good challenge. Now it's time to work on infrastructure.
It's a good challenge, but you cannot. That's not something you can even be boasting about, because the underlying challenges are way surpasses the actual celebrations you must be having today. So CDF is a good program. I want to confess. There are people that have said that I said that it is a scam. Angel, I have never called CDF as a scam. Let me make it very public. There was one time in Parliament when I challenged the Minister of Local Government to say the bureaucracy, the implementation glitches around CDF is making this good program start to look like it's a scam. Because how do you justify having 25.7 million sitting in the bank, yet the people are looking for development, and because of bureaucracy, because of terrible procedures, you cannot attend to their developmental needs. So it is beginning to look like a scam because you have not attended to these implementation glitches. So CDF is a very good program, but you must be able to distinguish where a CDF can work very well in urban setup. It may not work as very well in Lusaka, because the needs of the people of Lusaka are way beyond what CDF can manage. I will give an example of Nkana. I have in one area called Mindolo where people just want one thing, water. You go to the utility company in Kitwe called Nkana Water, they give me a bill of 53 million kwacha to fix that problem. Do you know how many CDFs are in 53 million? It's about 4 years of CDF. That is neglecting all the other 7 wards, just to concentrate on the water problem in 1 ward. So Nkana, whereas in Kanchibia, people can celebrate Ngamuapango Musebo Ua Maloba, in Nkana, when you make Musebo Ua Maloba, the next day Ninsede, because of the dust. Why? Because the frequency of the movement of vehicles in that area will produce so much dust that it will be unbearable for the people.
Okay, Honorable, let's quickly squeeze in contributions. The number is 0956 200 0956 200 That's the number that you can call. Good morning, Angel and Honorable. I'm listening loud and clear. Honorable Mpundu, I want to find out from you, how far does the agreement between the government and new investor at Mopani reached? Humphrey in Kitwe. Thank you so much, Humphrey. Let's get to the phone lines. Good morning. You are through to the program.
Good morning, Angel.
Yes, your name and where are you calling us from?
Kitwe Washmala. Binwell Mpundu Mulishani.
Ebuyina Washmala Mulishani.
Wino. Baona lebumuliranda mashwa kankara sana. Imikalire na byashuka mu musalo. Yazambia. Kunta abantu bari gishanya bari n'abandi babushusha n'abushusha. Ine kuti natimo kweba ati ba opposition baluri nikatani mukwato mutima wo. Ibya kwa foka abantu bena zami. Bantu ngachakweba ati ma politics ngayafula mukulanda. Mwana sango kweba ati abantu bonse bakafuka mukateka banani. Papa ino statuti ifintu ikatani baluri ni ba opposition kwateni mutima wo. Mungafoka bena Zambia. Bantu buchushi bwena mwandi na bufula. Abantu balefa kunsalo bunga na buyo mtembo sintu fyonse. Kyalubana. So ine mukulomba kwa ndindiro mukwe bati. Ikali nbonzi ba opposition baluri mpanji. Munga munefu munga kwa bena Zambia. Amaka rushoni apia refu aikwapa. Ama politics msefi anyeko. Watu nataka kimulela ndabulanda chevinesi. Mwasango kwa bena Zambia bala kwa bonse kunsala mukwatu abantu echakubalira. Abali mu government mukwatu mutima wabantu opposition mukwatu mutima wabantu. Nga mukwatu mutima wabantu bonse mwaikala mwala afwane charo chikenda bwini.
All right. Bashman, thank you so much for coming through. Let's squeeze in more calls. Good morning. You are through to the program.
Good morning. Thank you, Angel. Good morning, Honorable Mpundu.
Morning, sir.
Thank you. My name is Ngula calling from Mundola.
Yes,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mula, 60 seconds, please.
Yes, let me come on the issue of Oj Banda. You had said the police should have now concluded. That's what you said, that they should have concluded the investigations. But don't you think that Banda should have given the police a statement? Because from the little knowledge I gained when I was in police, I was in police for 3 years. I think you cannot conclude investigations when you have not gotten the statement. And it's not really that the one who is kidnapped can identify the people who are kidnapped him, and from all of them from the same section. And we are hearing that he told the wife that he left home at 01. That is the information we are getting. So all that is not giving the call to police that they could finish the investigation until they get the statement. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your contribution. Let's get to another caller. Good morning. You are through to the program.
Hello, my name is Ignatius Mwamba.
Yes, where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Sorezi.
Yes, 60 seconds, Mr. Mwamba.
Yeah, what I want to say is that things are bad in Gambia. The problem with the current government is they have concentrated so much into vengeance instead of concentrating on developing and towards the general public, bringing development. Now they are talking about what we are seeing is trying to bring vengeance. You know what Mr. Sata did when he came into power? We started working with the opposition. That's how we managed to get rid of MMD. They took all the people from the MMD and they started working to develop this country together. Now with the current government, it's vengeance. That's the problem. Vengeance. Now the people are suffering us in the grassroots.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, am I alive?
Yes.
Yeah. And
All
what I can say, I wanted to ask a question to Mr. Binwell.
Very quickly.
There was the issue which was talked about the exploration of oil by a company called Taro Oil. Can you go and ask about that in Parliament, where it is and where it has gone? Because when oil is discovered in this country, it can help our economy. That's my contribution. I'm a person from Nkana constituency.
What company again? What company?
Yes. Huh?
The oil company. What company?
Oh, Taro Oil.
Talo.
From the United Kingdom. I remember that company. It was launched for the exploration of oil in Wapura and Muchinga.
Oh, okay.
I would like to even have the number for the honorable to talk privately.
All right. Thank you so much. Hopefully he gives out the number towards the end of the program. Great to know that Sorezi is listening. Honorable, let's just pace up with the cause because quite a number of people have been trying to get through. Good morning. You're through to the program.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Very well. Your name and where are you calling us from?
You're talking to Morgan within Osaka.
Yes, Mr. Morgan, 60 seconds.
Yeah, and quickly point out, I think Mpundu, you have mentioned over the abducting of JJ Banda, Honorable Member of Parliament. I think for me, this matter, instead of speculation, this matter can get traced in the court of law. We want Banda can also, those who are accused, can only talk and finish this matter because Banda's complaint can only complain before the judge, and also those being accused, and they can prove their innocence through the court of law. That's one issue. What you said, talking in the hair. So don't breach this and bring. We know that even last time we were aware when Sama was shot at police headquarters, where they had surveillance there. Only the young man in Yondo who is suffering in jail, but who commanded him? So this is the issue I should look at. I think. Thank you very much, Abba.
Thank you so much. Let's get the last two calls on the number 0956 200490. Honorable Mpundu, good morning. What about fuel from Angola? Is not a success? Isn't it not a success? Edward in Kasenengwa. Thank you so much, Edward. Good morning, Honorable. I'm a resident of Nkana West to be specific. Allow me to take advantage of this platform to thank you for the street lights, bro. What is happening to the Central Street Road? That's Kitwe Chiwuluma Road. Lastly, I pray that JJ Mamboya gets well. Remember, the truth trampled upon the ground will rise again. Raymond Chulufia Kitwe. Thank you so much, Raymond. Good morning. You are through to the program.
Morning. You are talking to Adrian from Kasenengwa.
Yes, Adrian, 60 seconds.
Yes, I want to commend the Member of Parliament from Nkana. What he's saying is really saying the truth. You know, people are suffering. People are suffering, and talking about the free education, there is no free education in Zambia. It's only that people does not understand what is free education. Free education is everything. Free transport, free, but here is a different. And I think free education does not add value in a country of high cost of living. Yeah, these two things does not work together. You know,
right.
When you have free education, that means we should also live a good life. Now, they're saying they are delivering free education, but what about high cost of living?
Yeah.
So it's like we are frustrated now. You know, what they promised they have not yet fulfilled, and I don't know what way are they going to use for them to come back in power. Maybe those who know that they are benefiting are the people who are going to help them. But for some of us who have not yet benefited anything, I think we'll know what we'll do when that day comes.
All right. Mr. Adrian, thank you so much for coming through. Great to know that Kasenengo is listening. Let's get our last caller. Good morning. You are through to the program.
Good morning.
Yes, your name and where are you calling us from?
I'm calling you from Sorwezi.
Your name?
My name's Charlie.
Charlie. Okay, 60 seconds. Go ahead with the contribution.
Oh, yes. I'm calling concerning electricity. Here in Sorwezi, we had power only the day before yesterday. Since yesterday, from 05 up to now, we don't have power. And we are using pumps, so we don't have water, no power up to now. I don't know what the government is doing for us people here in Zambia. We should pray hard, because sometimes it's a spiritual thing. Yeah, it's like there's a spell that has been put on Zambian people. It's something, it's confusing. Businesses are, I can't explain anything. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Madam Chalwe. But I think, Honorable, you do feel her pain when she says, I cannot explain it.
Yeah.
It just shows you a fraction of the challenges that Zambians are passing through. I know we've got so much, but I hope you're able to respond to those in 7 minutes, because that's the only time we have.
But Chalwe, my sister in Solwezi, there's nothing spiritual about the problem that Zambia is going through. Wutungulushi. Because are you telling me that even just to come up with a schedule to distribute or to ration power, and sticking to that power rationing distribution, there's nothing spiritual. It's all about ubutungulush. And I want to marry this issue because you see, Angel, there are people abali notuma barber shop, abali notuma saluni, abakwatama butcheries, abantu bale chula. You can imagine amalaiti aleisa midnight. How are you going to do your business? And you know, people are surviving just hand to mouth. With this harsh economy, you want somebody who runs a barber shop. Abe ekofi omuntu apaka kufika 50 kwacha ayashitile kwa abantu ubunga. But amalaiti yaleisa past midnight. There's nothing spiritual. It's all about having a very reckless leaders who don't care about the people, because we just have 800 megawatts of shortfall of power. Are you telling me we can fail to ration where abantu bale kwatako in reasonable hours, even if it means 3 hours? There's no justification. Secondly, the role of Ifwe as opposition, Bashmalan, kubombera pamono buteko to collaborate. You remember not long ago, last year, before tabalachisha matababa UPND, Tualeba Minister of Agriculture, we stisha mataba tukakwate chipowe. This maize you want to export. Abanenu basunga for seasons. What did he tell us? We shall never, ever. Ale yumfano kuyumfale kunkunsha na mchesti minister pa floor of the house. How can you work with such a people? Ababika baboga mumatui. Okay? Anyway, our role is to tell Abaninsukweba that if imule chita mule rufianya. The problem is that the UPND thinks that when you speak a contra view, you are an enemy. They must follow you, they must beat you, or they must imprison you. I saw Mwaliteta saying we are going to have a by-election in Nkana, Lumezi, Petauke, and why do you want to have a by-election just because Binwell is talking or is advising? Because I'm actually a very good friend of the UPND. Because I'm telling things that they must do that will make them look like stars. So yes, we are willing to work with the UPND, but they must first of all be able to listen. Two cannot work together, the Bible says, unless they are able to agree. Bamvula Mwalando Kwebat J. Banda must give a statement to the police. Sir Bamvula, Honorable J. Banda already gave a statement. You remember when I was explaining, he was first interrogated at command center. where he gave a statement including whatever happened and the people that abducted him. We got that report through the lawyer Basakwiba Scotta that he actually mentioned the people that abducted him. The opposite is what we heard from the minister who was acting as Home Affairs by Minister of Defense, saying, no, we invited JJ for an interview and he opted not to say anything. The same thing that JJ said to the police officers in the presence of the lawyers is a statement that now JJ has made through the claim or the suit that he has taken to court now. So he gave out a statement. The problem is that people are trying to protect those that have been named as the real abductors. At least not to show who the abductors are, even if they are going to shield them, we know them. But Ignatius, you are saying UPND could have done better, except they are concentrating on fixing Abantu instead of fixing the economy. And I want to agree with you, because every day UPND is saying, no ba PF, no ba PF. Can you imagine Angel today? Na Leya Kubena Nkana saying, I'll be able to do better than Chiteme, who I took over from. Inenka mipera Musebo Chiburuma Road, inenka michitra fixi, sanitation in Buchi, ba mindolo nka mipera amenshi, and then today na Nkana and I'm saying, Mwamona, nichiteme ole ngele. Abantu walambo na shanta bambone ishilu. Because the reason why the people of Nkana voted for me is because I told them I'm going to do a better job. It has script ya kutira ba PF messed up. Yeah, Peter, this is 3 years. The reason why Zambian people voted for the UPND is because they presented solutions. Didn't you hear, Angel, that UPND were saying, ifo tukembaka nao kufuma apula, iya mensha kafumulu apula riva tukatuale ku Southern Province. Where have those formula gone? Because that is why we voted for UPND. That is why the Zambian people voted for UPND, is because they were presenting formulas. Of course, they had mentioned abanabo na ule chalo, if we are going to fix ichalo. Nama formula bale pela. For instance, the president was making a calculation but fuel is expensive under PF because mwadiba ishindarama baliamo ba PF. We were expecting that UPND must now have said, okay, you remember what we told you in the campaigns? Pali akabale bikapo ba PF tu akafumiapo. Tu abwesha komtengo. Mamona, pali akabale bikapo na koto akafumiapo. They've not done that. They are concentrating on ualanda mupepekeni. Ualanda mtualeni kukoti. Ualanda, you cannot manage a country by vengeance, and I want to agree with Ignatius. We are not suggesting that those who committed crime must not be punished. They must be punished, because when the law is not blind to personalities. When you commit a crime, you must be punished. But that does not mean the president must go on a podium and say, that thug who went to beat up police officers, I want that case, started again. The president, when he makes a pronouncement, his pronouncements are policy. They must be implemented. Can you imagine today the president says, I want, Angel fixed. The police have got no option but to find a way to fix you. So it is important, those that are managing the president, not to allow him to be speaking in the tone that he spoke at the press conference, because it jeopardizes the justice system. The courts will be scared to otherwise rule. Otherwise, the police will have to do everything to satisfy the powers that be. So the UPND must be seen not to be, driving on the road of vengeance. They can make a reference, but not every day.
Yeah, you have 1 minute to conclude, Honorable.
Edward talks about, Adrian talks about, is it Adrian? No. There is Raymond says, thank you for the streetlights. We are doing a number of streetlight projects in Nkana, Lunda Road in Miseshi, in Parklands. We are doing Nationalist, the road above Isieomo. We also are doing in Nkana West, 3rd Street will be starting soon. 12th Street, we've already done 11th Street, and but we are committed to bring development to Nkana. The Chiburuma Road, which is a central street road that passes through Nkana West, is already under construction, and you know how much I've struggled to get that road into Nkana.
Yeah.
I have done my best. The rest is for the supervisors who is RDA to ensure that they speed up, they make sure they push the contractor, because contractor is very slow. I must admit. The contractor on Chiruma Road is very slow. The contractor working on the sanitation project in Buchi is equally very slow. We've now given money to Nkana Water for the people of Mindolo to have water. I was meeting them 2 days ago. We hope that they will also speed up the work. So we are committed to do the best. By the way, Angel, for me, I stand very tall and proud that contrary to others that would want to say Tulandaranda Fet Sungu, that Rewomba constituency, Nkana, and I can challenge anyone, is one of the best performing constituencies in terms of projects that are underway today. We are building a fully fledged secondary school sponsored by the World Bank. We are sorting out the problem of sanitation in Buchi, which has been long-standing for many years. We have given the people of Nkana the road coach, Ruma Road. Very soon, even the Independence Road is going to be done from Copper Hill Mall all the way into town. That has been a very bad stretch. It's soon going to be done.
Honorable, we'll have to leave it there because we've literally run out of time. But thank you so much for coming through to today's edition of ChatBack.
Okay, thank you so much, Angel. I would like to come back because if you are going to finger,
yes, most definitely. No, not tomorrow. All right, up next is the news, and then just after that, Chipo comes on with today's edition of Lifestyle. Good morning.
ChatBack on RCV News.